BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello and welcome to this Best of Today podcast. I'm Martha Carney. Sometimes in this job you get to interview one of your heroes, and this has just happened to me. My father was from Liverpool, and so the Beatles they've always been part of my life. When I heard that Sir Paul McCartney was having a photography exhibition, I was so keen to talk to him, and to my great delight, he said yes. We met at the National Portrait Gallery in London to talk about the exhibition and the book which accompanies it. These are photos taken in a very intense 3-month period at the end of 1963 and early 64, when Beatlemania was taking hold and the band went on tour to the United States. The photos were only recently discovered, and I asked Sir Paul, what was it like to find them again?
It was really, really good, actually, because I thought I'd lost them. And I assumed that because the 60s was so loose and doors were left open, and I would invite everyone in and stuff, and a lot of stuff went missing. So I thought this would all be missing. But my photo archivist, who mainly deals with Linda's work, she said, no, we've got them all. And so I said, wow, let's get them out. Let's have a look at them. So I was very pleasantly surprised.
Well, let's have a look at some of them now. And these are pictures, I think, that really only you could have taken because they're so intimate. I mean, there's George Harrison fast asleep.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true. The thing is, we had photographers around with us, but they couldn't get this kind of access. So, and also, like George would go asleep because it was just me. Whereas if it was a photographer, he might try and stay awake.
He could really relax. And John Lennon there wearing glasses, which we'd never have seen that in public at the time.
No, he was, up until the advent of Buddy Holly, he would never be seen out with glasses. But Buddy Holly, who was a big favourite of ours, wore glasses. So John felt a bit better about wearing the glasses then. But normally it was like, whoop, there's girls around, glasses came off.
Get them off.
Yeah.
And is he slightly nervous there?
I don't know, no, it's just one of his habits,
chewing
he's
his
doing
fingers.
It there too.
Oh yes, chewing his
It's just
knuckles.
one of his little things. And I was very pleased to see that because I'd forgotten that. It's not the kind of thing you remember about people, that they just got a little...
Their mannerisms.
Mannerism, yeah. But that was, I don't think it was nervous, he's just thinking. Yeah, and here he is again doing the same thing.
And over here there's a kind of playfulness which is very typical of the time. So this is George.
Yeah, with 2 hats. It will have just been in some costume fitting and stuff. And he spotted these 2 silver top hats. So he's decided to put them both on. And then with George, he keeps the deadpan expression, which really makes it much better.
Much better for the comedy effect, as if he's doing it. And then this is an unusual one for this exhibition. It's all 4 of you together. It looks like all on top of each other.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I'd have the camera with me, but then I'd just ask our roadie just to take a quick pic of this, for souvenir kind of thing. And why he did that with like all on top of each other, or the other way was peeking round a door, so you were all in a line. It was because the newspaper editors sometimes would have filled the whole page, but they didn't have room for a big photo, but they could use a single column. So that's what the photojournalists would get us to do this, so then they could sell it to the papers.
And these are all from the very early days, and I think you've got George's parents just next to him.
Yeah, it's Harry, his mum, and Louise, his dad, who were great people. Harry was a bus driver. Louise was a very formidable housewife. She was great. You wouldn't want to mess with Louise. Somebody had come to the door once at their house, and she didn't like whoever it was, a salesman. So she was out she poured a bucket of water over him.
Seriously?
From the upstairs window, yeah. That was Louise. But they were great people,
And the lovely, joyous picture of Ringo at the top, slightly kind of blurred, which some of the photos are, aren't they, caught on the hoof?
Yeah, with the movement, yeah, it's just blurred it, yeah.
And the photographs in these rooms are from some of the early shows in Liverpool and then in London. And here's behind the scenes at the Palladium.
Yeah, yeah. I like this one of John sort of screwing up his eyes. He's obviously trying to not get soap. He's washing his face, trying to not have soap in his eyes. But again, you know, that's the kind of thing he'd let me take that picture because it's just me. And, you know, he thought it was never going to get publicized. Sorry, John. But, no, you had that access and that intimacy just because you lived on top of each other, you know. So it was really nice looking back at the photos and reminding me of those days.
And there's one of you here engrossed in a newspaper.
Yeah. It's, yeah, you know, you're just sitting around and, you know, my camera's there and someone's picked it up and just taken a shot. So you never quite know who took these. It will have been someone like Mal or Rhodey or Neil, another road manager, or maybe one of the guys, one of the other Beatles. We were all very keen on photography, actually, because the new modern cameras then had come out with the reflex cameras like Pentax and stuff, and we all had one, so we all liked to take pictures. Ringo's had a book recently of his pictures, so yeah, it's pictures of an era. So when you're taking them, you don't ever think, obviously, that it's going to be historical, because you're just taking a snapshot. But then this long after, you look back and say, wow, that's really captured the look, how we dressed, how we looked, the hotel rooms, the style of the hotels. And so it brings the whole period back.
And when you look at this picture of the young Paul McCartney,
yeah.
What do you think?
Good-looking boy.
You were?
No,
Still
I
are.
do, you know.
I should have said.
I do. It's I like that about all these pictures. You know, we were sort of young and beautiful. And you didn't know it. You know that thing where people will say, oh, I don't like having my photo taken. I look terrible. And then 10 years later, they'll go, oh, I didn't look too bad.
It wasn't too bad then, was it?
No.
Yes, I've had that
20
experience.
years later, I was gorgeous. So all this time after, you know, I think we were good-looking boys.
Well, let's see how the good-looking boys took Paris by storm as we come into this next room. And the show in Paris was just 2 years after you and John had gone there hitchhiking.
Yeah.
And those two trips must have been incredibly different.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was just the two of us, and we didn't know Paris. So we just wandered around and went to various things, went to the cinema together. We just did a lot of stuff together, you know. When we went to the cinema, it was an old film called The Time Machine, the original one. And what was amazing for us, the kind of thing that builds a friendship, we were up in the balcony upstairs, and two French guys came in and sat right in front of us, and we thought they were like got out some gum to share, but it was a piece of garlic. I was like, what? I mean, oh God, the smell. I mean, for like Liverpool people, it's like, no, that's not good. And they're just sharing a little clove of garlic each, you know.
That's so
strange. You know, all those kind of memories come back when I see these pictures.
I think it was also in Paris where you had the famous haircuts, first of all, wasn't it?
Yeah. We knew a friend from Hamburg who we met up with later in Paris called Jürgen Vollmer. And we knew he was a photographer and an artist. And it was a group we'd fallen in with, mainly Astrid, Jürgen, and Klaus, who were three students who lived in Hamburg. And we really got very friendly with them. We were very impressed with their style. It was kind of a very cool modern style. So when John and I met him Jürgen in Paris, we said, "Oh, come on, will you cut our hair like yours?" And he said, "No. He said, "You are rockers. I like it." He liked the sort of quiff and all that. We said, "No, we had enough of that." So, "Will you do it?" So, after much, complaining, he did it, and we went back to Liverpool with this Beatle cut. Everyone go, "What are you doing? What's up? What's wrong? Your hair's funny." I said, "Yeah, it's the latest thing."
Fab gear.
Fab gear, man. Oh.
And just looking round at all the photographs in this room, the black and white photographs, do you think the style has changed? Do you become more influenced in or interested in French cinema, the new wave?
My style, when we get there, well, I think so. I think there is that, but I think more importantly, you're in Paris, so the style changes just because it's Paris, as opposed to London. So the buildings are different, and the people are different, I will often joke when I go to Paris. I'll say to my wife, I say, "Look at all those people. They're all thinking in French." It's like, yeah, even that dog is thinking in French. It's like, how did they do it? No, but anyway, just the change, it's kind of exotic. And the English people going to Paris.
And the French crowds the fans were a bit more cool, were they? There wasn't quite the same level of hysteria.
It was a bit that.
At some of these pictures.
Yeah, no, it was. It wasn't. There weren't many girls in the audience. And we say, why? So apparently their mums or whoever would say, you have to be chaperoned if you're going to something like that. So there weren't that many. It was mainly guys. And gradually, we were there for a little while, so we gradually won them over. So much so that they got a bit crazy, and they're all jumping up and down. And the police, the gendarmes, are coming around with sticks and hitting them. And we're announcing, no, it's okay. It's just exuberance.
Just a bit of natural excitement.
No, sit down. Yeah.
I'm going to move you into this next room now, which I thought was really interesting. It's called Behind the Camera, and it's about photography. But it tells us a lot about your family and your family's interests. So this first photograph here, this is your dad, isn't it?
That's my dad, yeah. Jimmy Mack.
In front of a house that your early success had bought him, wasn't it?
Bought for him, yeah. It was, it was a nice thing to be able to do, because he'd lived over in Liverpool, and this was now the posh bit. They call it over the water.
In the Wirral?
In the Wirral, yeah. So, so I got him this house, and he lived there with my brother, Mike.
And there's a picture of Mike just next along. And your family had a box camera, as so many families did, Kodak Brownie. Yeah. We had one.
Yeah. And you learn to use that and, try to make some interesting pictures. But it was normally just when you were on holiday. That's the only real time you'd get them out. We went to Butlins, and I'm thinking now, like, we didn't have sort of a groovy change of clothes. I think it was just the money wasn't there, we weren't a well-off family.
Well, it was expensive enough going on holiday anyway, going to Butlins at that time.
Yeah. So, we and my brother, we went in our school uniforms. I've got my school hat on, the blazer. That was like my coolest outfit. Whereas now, kids will have like the groovy thing and the jeans and everything, But anyway, to get a good picture, even on the Brownie, I hung off the diving board, and sort of my brother took a picture of me there. So
very arty.
We were thinking of, trying to do something a little bit different here.
Your brother, in a book that he's written, talks about that interesting kind of photography. He says that he describes a family photo taken by you with the box camera and a piece of cotton that you pulled in order to take the picture, and then he says nearly every time you pulled it, the camera fell over.
Yeah, you had to weight it down with a brick or something. Yeah.
It's a great picture
No,
of
that's
you.
right.
Of your,
Yeah. I'd forgotten that till now, actually. Yeah.
I wonder if I might just have that photo here, actually, somewhere. Yeah, there it is. I don't know if you can see it. It's not that brilliant a print.
Oh, that's that.
it.
Yeah, look at that. Cousin Jean, Ted Merry, me and Mike, and my dad. Yeah, I think it was so hilarious because finally we've got a shot. The camera didn't fall over.
Finally worked. And you all, I mean, it couldn't have been that long after your mum died, but you look like a happy and a warm family there.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was half the story. It wasn't all that because, it was a huge blow to us losing our mother, me and Mike losing our mum when we were like 14. He'd be 13. So there was all of that, and all the terrible bits of that kind of grief that you got to get through. I mean, I say it was the first time I'd ever heard my dad cry, and we heard him. He was in the next room, but he's sobbing, and our whole lives you'd never heard that. I don't really think I ever heard it again. But it wasn't all laughs. There was the tragedy that had befallen us. And she died of cancer. So, but you had to get through it, and you did. And being from Liverpool, it's a very sort of, get up and go attitude. And also, my mum and dad, had to now get over the war. Because this was just post-war, all this stuff.
And Liverpool had been very badly bombed and
Yeah.
yeah.
So, when people are moaning these days, I'd say, imagine this, only there's bombs falling. Now you get an idea of what they went through. Yeah, no, but they had to be strong and they had to be resilient. So, they'd use music and jokes and, that's how you got through it. So it was good. It was great to see that. It was a great lesson in life to see how to deal with bad times.
And your dad encouraged you with the music and the photography in the house.
Yeah. Well, he'd been an amateur musician himself, so he didn't mind us coming around to our house and rehearsing, and me and John coming round and writing there. He was very supportive, so that was very helpful. And there was a piano in the house because he played, so I would noodle around on it. So that's kind of how I learned to play a bit of piano. So all these little things mounted up, and added to the success we were about to have.
Well, let's see where all that noodling around ended up, because we're going to hear a bit more about that very intense 3 months when all these photographs were taken.
Yeah.
And let's go through. There's a really spectacular photo we're about to see, which has been blown up, and it covers one whole wall of the exhibition.
Yeah.
And it covers one whole wall of the exhibition.
Yeah, that's really nice that you can blow, because these pictures were taken on film, you can blow them up really big and they don't pixelate.
So we should say this is your American tour with incredible Beatlemania, and this entire wall is filled with a picture of you arriving at Miami Airport.
Yeah, and this is what greeted us. So, I'm so glad I took a picture of it, because I wouldn't remember half of this. I mean, we've got the two bathing beauty queens.
In their
girls,
swimsuits with sashes.
In the swimsuits, looking good. And then just to the right, there's someone who's got a chimpanzee. And it looks like a guy, I think. He's got a rather jaunty little white hat on, and then a kind of leopard skin dress, mini dress, or blouse or something, with these shiny, sparkly, is that trousers?
I think
or
they are
long
trousers,
boots?
with sparkly boots as well. But that's so bizarre, as you say, with the chimpanzee on the side.
He's got a chimpanzee.
It's literally a circus.
Yeah. What's going on? And then you look up, and right up at the top row, there's all people on the top deck of the airport. And then I love this, even in these windows. Yeah, so it was like, wow.
And I was interested to know, you were in the midst of all of this, but you were taking photographs of it. You wanted to chronicle it in some way, or was it a way of distancing yourself from all the fame? What was going on in your head at the time?
Well, I think one of the things about, traveling somewhere, we're like young 20-year-olds, was a lot of it you thought, oh, wait till I tell the people back home about this. Wait till I tell. There was all these people, and they were all that, And so you took a picture, and, later you'd show all these, this is what we did, this is what... Yes, and then you wouldn't look at them ever again for like 60 years.
Until they reappear.
Until suddenly, yeah. It's lovely having these memories.
Well, let's go through and hear more about all that time in America.
Okay.
So let's go through. I'm going to move you through here. We've got a picture of the crowds running down the street in New York.
In New York,
around the time of the Ed Sullivan Show. And let's
58th Street and Avenue of the Americas.
And there's a picture over here that I think, well, let's begin with this one up here, which is you're in the middle of a press scrum.
Yeah.
And you said it's a rare picture of seeing you. And do you remember what was going on there?
No. I mean, that would appear to be journalists talking to us.
They didn't know your individual names, did they?
Well, most of them didn't. No. It'd be like, hey, Beetle. Hey, Beetle. One more for the West Coast.
This is a very striking photograph over here. Again, black and white, a railway worker in front of a railway car. Why did you take him?
Well, I'm interested in photography, and anyone interested in photography tends to be interested in characters. Also, being from the working class, I'm being very proud of it. I like these kind of people. So if I spot this guy who's got a big shovel on a Pennsylvania railway station, I see he's amused at what he's seeing. He's seeing these crazy Beatle people going past on the train. And I'm amused. I'm looking at him and sort of wondering what his life's like. What is it? What's he using that shovel for? Clearing the snow? There was a lot of snow around. But and I can relate to those kind of people.
And I think it's hard looking back to that time that America was so different, so glamorous, so exotic, and particularly for the world of music.
Yeah. Well, it was where all the music that we loved had come from. The blues had come from America. Rock and roll came out of that, and we heard it. And it changed things completely, because the music scene that we'd grown up listening to was old-fashioned. It was standards, and there was a lot of comedy records, a lot of sort of gimmicky, Gilly Gilly Otzenpfeffer, Katzenellenbogen by the Sea was one of the songs.
Right. Glad we moved on from those.
Yeah. So, then suddenly rock and roll came in, and it was like, wow, it was a bolt out of the blue. And, so we were so excited. So here we were in America, the land of all this music, and we were very excited that they liked us, because we were kind of selling it back to them. And a lot of them didn't know what we knew, because we were big fans of the music. So a lot of people wouldn't know who wrote Twist and Shout. They just assumed we did it. But we go, no, it's these people called the Isley Brothers. They're great. You should listen to them. So it was really nice just being able to educate a lot of the white people mainly.
And you wouldn't, at a time of where there were still some theatres playing to segregated audiences who would only play to white houses or black, but you refused to play in segregated places.
Yeah, we did. I'm very proud of that. I'm very happy that we were sensible enough to say no. We were down, I think it was Jacksonville, in southern states of America. And they said, yeah, it's a segregated audience, but don't worry about it. We said, what do you mean? Like black people all there and the white people all there? We said, well, no, we're not doing that. Because, we had loads of mates in Liverpool who were black, and so it never meant anything to us when you didn't get segregation where we were from. So now we just refused to do it, and they had to back down. So there were quite a few people there. One girl who I remember hearing the story who said she'd never sat with white people before. And she's a young girl sitting with young white girls. She's a black girl. And she's just loving it. They're just loving the Beatles concert experience. So I was very proud of all that, that we naturally wouldn't go along with this segregation rubbish.
We're coming into the final room of the exhibition, which is the photographs taken in Miami. And you've gone from black and white photography to this explosion of colour. And you're just all obviously having the most fantastic time.
Yeah, well, if you were lucky, you'd end a tour somewhere sunny. We often used to try and end it in LA. But this was sort of the first time we'd ever been to Miami. And yes, I had to get the colour film out. And it just shows just having a great time. There's a picture there of John walking on water. Proof. That's all I say. Well,
he's just jumping into the pool, isn't he? But you've caught him at the moment where he looks like walking on water. That's brilliant.
No, but you can see we're all having a great time, just having this much time off. And
here's George having a wonderful time with a very glamorous young lady.
This is the most exotic picture in the whole exhibition, yeah. This is George, looking very handsome. He's got his shades on. He's just being given a drink by this good-looking girl. I think you can't see her face, but
you have rather focused on the bikini, I have to say.
I have. Yeah. Well, I'm photographing George. Don't give me that. No, but I think I like the composition. Actually, I think it works nicely. But he's living the life. This was it. We were suddenly more time off than we'd ever had in this place where we were working. We weren't actually on holiday, but it felt like we were. Well, it's great.
And is there ever a poignancy for you looking at these photographs of these young men, some of whom aren't here anymore? I mean, George Harrison, Brian Epstein, John Lennon.
Yeah, it is very poignant. Yeah, it's great because whenever you lose someone, I think the natural thing is, well, we've got beautiful memories, and you hold fast to those memories of the good times. I don't tend to dwell on the fact that you've lost someone. After a while, it maybe take a year or two, but then you can look back. And so, I'm looking at George there, and it makes me think, God, I met him on the school bus, and he's just my little mate, my little brother, Similarly with John, you just remember where you met them, things you did. We went hitchhiking together. Me and George went down to Wales once. And then another time we went down to Exmouth, and we just hitchhiked. So we were really close, And then when it came to the Beatles, and you'd have this sort of overwhelming stuff happening to you, you knew each other so well that you could lean on each other. So that's what I see in these pictures. But it is sad. Because, I'd prefer him to be here.
And what do you think about efforts that are being made through technology, through artificial intelligence, to recreate the early Beatles, making your voice sound younger, bringing those voices back, from the grave, really? Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a very interesting thing, It's something we're all sort of tackling at the moment, you know, and trying to deal with what's it mean, you know. Yeah, people will. I don't hear that much because I'm not on the internet that much. But people will say to me, "Oh yeah, there's a track where, you know, John's singing one of my songs," and it isn't. It's just AI, you know. So all of that is kind of scary, but exciting because it's the future. And we were able to use that kind of thing when Peter Jackson did the film Get Back, where it was us making the Let It Be album. And he was able to extricate John's voice from a ropey little bit of cassette where it had John's voice and a piano. He could separate them with AI. They tell the machine, that's a voice, this is a guitar, lose the guitar. And he did that. So it has great uses. So when we came to make what will be the last Beatles record, it was a demo that John had that we worked on, and we've just finished it up. It'll be released this year. We were able to take John's voice and get it pure through this AI, so that then we could mix the record as you would normally do. You know, so it gives you some sort of leeway. So there's a good side to it, and then a scary side, and we'll just have to see where that leads.
So this is a question that I've wanted an answer to pretty well all of my life. Ooh. And it's about the song Martha, My Dear, which people have sung to me over the years. And then I found out that it was supposedly written about your dog.
It was.
Oh.
It was. You thought it was about you?
I wasn't quite that mad, but I'd hoped it was for some young love of your life called Martha.
Yeah, well, it was my little dog. I'd never had a dog as a kid, so I eventually, you know, when we started with the Beatles, I got a little dog, an old English sheepdog called Martha. And one day the inspiration came to write Martha, my dear. And yeah, so it's an ode to a sheepdog. Not you.
Not me.
Well, I wish it right now. I wish it was about you.
Oh. I shall try and calm down. Paul McCartney.
She's come over all funny.
I have blushed actually. Yes, no. It doesn't happen very often. Sir Paul McCartney, many thanks indeed for talking to us.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, Martha.
Thanks for listening to this Best of Today podcast. I'm Martha Carney. More on BBC Sounds.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.